But we still have, what, 8 games left here, so I'm not ready to say, these games don't matter at all. And we obviously have to evaluate him down the stretch. But again, I think kind of putting the burden of proof is on Jalen Hurts to prove he is the guy. I don't think it's like good enough, again, like you said there, Jody, like to say like, oh, he's definitely, we can't say he's not. Like, I don't think that's good enough. I think he has to like affirmatively prove he is the guy. And I just have my doubts that that's really going to happen again when like the offense has been more efficient than ever when Jalen Hurts has been less involved as a passer than ever. And I just don't think that's really the most sustainable way of winning in the NFL. I think
if it's more than 3, I'm going to lose my mind. But that's me because I'm a jerk and a bit of a nerd. But that's all right. Speaking of a jerk and a nerd, here's our buddy, Brandon Lee Gowton. We're a little late getting to him. Our bad, but good to get him. Give you the first question I just asked her. When are we going to get an 18th game in the NFL? Because 17 games is just not working for me.
I'm going to say, so Jeff said 3 years here.
Yeah.
I'm going to price this right this. I'm going to go, the opposite price rate, I guess. We'll go a little bit under. I'm going to say 2 years.
2 years. Okay. I'm glad you took
We're more optimistic than the league is.
All right. But let me follow up with another league question for you, and then we'll get really Eagles specific with you, Brandon. We talked about this with John McMullen at the top of the show. The taunting call in the Monday night game, in my estimation, John, and I think for the most part, Jeff, was ridiculous. Just complete abuse of power. And they can say, well, we warned you about this and we made it a point of emphasis. They're over legislating the game. It could have had a major impact in the outcome of the game, which I think is terrible and should be decided by the players. Does the NFL, are they all just giving us all the big middle finger that we'll do whatever we want? We don't care what media guys or fans say about the game being less enjoyable because it's flag after flag after flag after flag. Are they really telling us, shut up, you're just going to watch anyway, so don't even comment on it? How bad is the NFL mishandling their game in the way they officiate?
I mean, basically, right? Like, who's asking for this? Who else except for the crotchety owners are asking for this enforcement and institution? And I still I don't want to let Tony Corrente off the hook there, because I think that was still, even though he can say it's a point of emphasis, whatever, it's a bad rule, I just have to enforce it. I mean, I don't really agree with that. I mean, I think that was a bad enforcement in that instance still. And I think if the refs had any chutzpah, they could not call it this, egregiously like they are, but it's really dumb and it shouldn't exist. And I don't think anyone out there is arguing otherwise except for the owners.
Brandon, wouldn't you enjoy more? I mean, because you go to the games, wouldn't you enjoy more if you were at that game and Tony Corrente had to actually stand up at the podium and explain his decision, like every coach and every player does after every little situation that they only remember?
Yeah, I mean, it's limited to just the pool report. It's like one reporter gets to kind of contact him and ask them those questions in a very rushed setting, like a couple questions. It's not like you said there, Jeff, like they're standing up at the podium and getting faced with these wide ranging questions. So it's totally different for the refs.
BLG Eagles are 3-6, hung in the game, came up short, game-winning field goal by Chargers late. So they see they're 3-6, but the schedule gets easier from here on in. But we basically evaluate the team and where they're at on a week-in, week-out basis. Who's been more disappointing for you so far, the Eagles this year, the head coach or the defensive coordinator?
I think you have to say the defensive coordinator, because when you have a defense that gives up 5 quarterbacks who are completing 80% of their passes, I mean, that's just wild. And I think back to training camp, and the defense was showing some positive signs. Now, again, it's only training camp, it's practice, whatever. But still, it seemed like they had the talent here. And you look at all the investments on the Eagles defensive line, and you're like, all right, they have enough here to kind of be maybe not one of the best defenses in the NFL, but enough to not be a total joke, to be respectable. And, the Eagles obviously have had some good defensive moments this season, but it's come against really bad quarterbacks, Sam Darnold and Jared Goff. And at some point, you need a defensive game plan where you can beat the good quarterbacks, and they don't have that at all.
BLG, we hear from streamers they feel the talent on this defense is better than it was last year, 2019, under Jim Schwartz. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I get asked that on Twitter too a lot, and I kind of give like a, I don't know. Like, what do you feel? Do you feel there's more talent on this defense than what the stats are showing?
I mean, I think talent is part of the issue. I know I just said I think they had enough to be a respectable defense, but, again, they don't have enough to be an elite defense, and that's part of the problem. I think some guys have really fallen off, like Fletcher Cox, obviously, who I believe has like 2 sacks in his last 12 games. Like, that's just not good enough from your top paid player on the entire team. Javon Hargrave had a great start to the year, an all-pro kind of start to the year with 6 sacks in his first 5 games. But since then, in his last 4, he doesn't have 1. So they're not getting the production. You look at how the Eagles haven't spent resources, or if they have, they haven't done it wisely. I'll put it this way: like, who have the Eagles drafted? Like, who was the last player the Eagles drafted on defense that opposing teams should really fear? Like, is it Josh Sweat? I mean, Josh Sweat I think is a nice player, but I don't think people are shaking in their boots because of Josh Sweat, who didn't do anything against the Chargers. I think it's it's not just about Gannon. I think that'd be scapegoat, or he would be a scapegoat for the front office's issues if we're not making it, or if we're making it only about him. I think the talent here isn't good enough, and again, they haven't invested those resources as a whole when you're looking at these draft picks and everything, or at least if they haven't done it wisely. So it's kind of issues across the board.
All right, sticking with the defensive line and not getting enough pressure. I'm getting tired of even listening to myself. I beat up on Derek Barnett on a daily basis, almost an hourly basis here on Birds 365. And I don't understand why he continues to play. Last night, Ruben Frank told me. Today, John McMullen told me. Well, the other options are just as bad, if not worse, which I kind of find hard to believe. But even if I accept that, I got one more play here. Milt Williams. And I know that he hasn't put up numbers either, and he's played some, not nearly as much as Derek Barnett. And if you're not in there, if you're not getting snaps, you can't make any plays. Nobody gets any sacks or quarterback hits or hurries from the bench. That I figured out following football for 40 years. Should they be moving him outside more, BLG? They talked to him about being a young Brandon Graham and a guy who could go between inside and outside. Well, they lost Brandon Graham way too early this season. They're not getting him back. Yet we haven't seen this flexibility with Milt Williams. Anything to get Derek Barnett off the field. I'm willing to move Milt Williams outside, even if it's completely outside, and take him out of the defensive tackle rotation. Why hasn't that happened?
It's a good question. I think, obviously no one's sitting, at least this team is not, maybe you are, Jody, but this team isn't sitting Derek Barnett or Barnett on the bench completely. I think you could get more of a rotation going, so he's not playing like I think he was. Like, he's one of the top 2 defensive linemen in terms of playing time in the last game. And that penalty was so huge, by the way. Turning that 3rd and 6 into a 3rd and 1 is a huge penalty, and it's not his first one that we've seen this year. I think you could, and should maybe move Milton Williams outside, but I think that's hardly like the easy fix in terms of, I look at Milton Williams' production this year, and outside of the Lions game, in which everyone had like a career day basically, or their best performance of the season, Milton Williams has 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss, and 0 quarterback hits this season. So, I don't think he's, the surefire answer. Obviously, he showed some promise in the preseason. Obviously, you have hopes about him in the future moving forward. So it's not just about what he does this year as much as it is, getting him more experience and hoping he can kind of develop over the course of the season and then going into next year. So, I mean, I'm open to try anything, but I just don't know that they have a great answer.
BLG, everybody in this stream has more receiving yards than Jalen Reagor the last 2 weeks. What do you do with this guy at this point?
I never bought the Jalen Reagor, breakout talk this year. I said he did not have a great training camp when it came to like 11-on-11 drills. He did, he had those highlight catches and one-on-ones, but okay, that's not real football. That's just, I guess, a drill basically. And, we're seeing it manifest this season into him just being completely a non-factor. He's at 7.6 yards per reception, which is the worst in the NFL of any receiver. There's a good stat out there that he had 55 yards in his first game, which came on his first career catch against Washington in 2020. He hasn't topped 55 yards in a single game since then. It's just really disappointing. Obviously, he got banged up in the Lions game, and it seemed like some of those effects were still lingering in the Chargers game because they didn't have him return punts, and he obviously wasn't a big part of the game plan. Not that he should be anyway. So I think we can add that caveat in there, but I just don't know. What I would do is just not play him a ton because he's not good. I don't know what else you can say. And again, it's not like the Eagles have a bunch of amazing options behind him, but I just don't think Jalen Reagor is, much of anything for this offense other than I thought he showed some promise as, on some of those running plays against the Lions. And I think part of that is because it's Detroit. And again, anyone can kind of look good against them. But I would maybe try to get him more involved on those. But it's pretty sad when you spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver and all you can do maybe with that person is run the ball.
Yeah, the problem with him running the ball now is when he comes in, he's so ineffective at running patterns and or catching the ball, making plays downfield. The other team knows, Reagor's in, it's got to be a jet sweep. And they're ready for it, and they sniff it out ahead of time. All right, do you want to go here with your BLG? Because I did with Jeff, and John and I did it earlier. Where we thought the Eagles would be at this stage of the season. I had them actually at 2-7, but finishing 8-9 and 8-9. Jeff had them at 3 or 4, and he had them finishing 8-9. Where are they where you thought they'd be, and has it changed your overall position at how many games you think the Eagles are going to win at the end of the year?
I think, just from a record standpoint, I'm not shocked at a 3-6. I think I had them about 7-10, 8-9 when the schedule came out, and I kind of stuck with that for the most part. I felt like that was on the high end actually for me. And then I started to feel a little bit better about that going into the season in week 1 and everything, and then obviously started to feel worse about that with some of the struggles. But I think I'm still there when you look at the easy schedule. It's just kind of a year, I guess, that we kind of expected in the sense that it is this transition year. It's not a season anyone expecting them to be competing for a Super Bowl. I don't think that means things can't be disappointing still. You can have this expectation and things go along in the big picture, the overall record of how you expected. But I think the defense, again, like we talked about, has more just been disappointing when you're allowing quarterbacks to complete passes at a historical completion percentage. That's really disappointing. The offense has had some inconsistencies. And really the biggest thing, at least one of the biggest things that matters, in addition to finding out, is Nick Sirianni a good head coach, which I think there's, I'm not going to say he's a great head coach, but I think there's at least some hope for him. I don't think there's as much hope for Jalen Hurts, who I know was coming off a better performance for him this season against the Chargers, but I don't think he's done nearly enough, I should say, to erase all doubt that he is the Eagles franchise quarterback moving forward. And I think that's the bar they have for him. I don't think it's as simple as just he showed some encouraging signs and now we're going to stick with him and let him grow. I don't think that's it. I think he has to erase all doubt. And I don't think he's done that to this point. And I think the Eagles shifting their offense to a very run-heavy offense where he's not even passing the ball that much kind of speaks to their lack of confidence in his passing ability, which I think is a big concern moving forward for him.
Let me try and tie you down there. And, Jeff, I'll let you get in here. Just let me follow up. I hear what you're saying about he hasn't done enough to make you believe, he's the guy. But for me, at least, he hasn't done enough for me to be able to say, he's not the guy. They have to go looking for another quarterback. Jalen Hurts, we know, even though he's going to be the quarterback for the last 8 games, he's not going to be the quarterback in 2022. I'm not there either. So I'm still in the TBD, to be determined middle. It sounds like you're certainly trending in the don't think it's happening direction. Are you already there? You know that Jalen Hurts is not going to be good enough to be their quarterback in 2022?
But we still have 8 games left here, so I'm not ready to say these games don't matter at all. And we obviously have to evaluate him down the stretch. But again, I think kind of putting the burden of proof is on Jalen Hurts to prove he is the guy. I don't think it's good enough. Again, like you said there, Jody, to say he's definitely. We can't say he's not. I don't think that's good enough. I think he has to affirmatively prove he is the guy, and I just have my doubts that that's really going to happen again when the offense has been more efficient than ever when Jalen Hurts has been less involved as a passer than ever. And I just don't think that's really the most sustainable way of winning in the NFL. I think if you want to disagree with me on that, that's fine. But I think the Eagles certainly don't think that's a sustainable way given what they value, which is really relevant here in the discussion. And you just Jalen Hurts, 17 pass attempts against the Chargers, 14 pass attempts against the Lions. Like that's not, I just don't think that's sustainable moving forward. At some point, you need your quarterback to drop back 30 times a game and have the confidence he can do that and be a really good high level offense and beat the really good teams. And I don't know if he's developing into that player in the long run. I think he has limitations as a passer. And it's a shame because I think Jalen Hurts is a very rootable player, a likable guy that you would like to see develop in an ideal world. But I think that's not the standard in today's NFL. You want an elite quarterback. You don't just want a guy who's kind of good enough.
So this kind of brings, Jody kind of asked my question, but I'll.
Sorry for jumping in.
No, you're fine, Jody. So now I'll go to this one because this is going to be my. What do you think is, in terms of NFL quarterbacks, if you had to kind of name an NFL quarterback, what do you think Jalen Hurts' ceiling could be?
I think his ceiling is someone of like a guy who can get you into the playoffs and maybe kind of be one and done. I mean, I think that's kind of the where it's capped out at. I think, maybe like a Tyrod Taylor, one of these kind of just a solid. I think he belongs in the NFL. He's an NFL quarterback. I think he'd be a very high level backup, one of the best backups in the NFL. I think he's a low end starter. Someone maybe like, hey, a team the Eagles are playing this week, and Teddy Bridgewater, a guy who kind of hops around the league. He starts for some teams, but he's never a guy. I don't think a team is going to be handing out like one of these insane top of the market contracts to. I just don't think he's justified that. And he's a hard quarterback to kind of quantify in some respects because you see how big his mobility can be. I thought he came up huge on those last two touchdown drives for the Eagles against the Chargers, scrambling and making those big plays to extend drives on like 3rd and 4s and what have you. But at the end of the day, it's a passing league. I think we all know that. And I just don't think he has those talents. I think there are real deficiencies in his ability to pass the ball effectively. And I don't think that's something that magically gets better with time. Not to say he can't get better than he is right now, but I don't think you're getting to a point where you're one of the very elite offenses in the league, or he's one of the very best quarterbacks. I just don't think he's making that jump from what he is now.
All right, BLG, I'm looking at the Eagle box score from this past week and the one the week before against the Lions, which was a nice blowout victory. It's always good when you get those because you can get some extra guys, some snaps, and some run and the like. But looking over the last several games, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, since Hurts left, and basically nobody else in the passing game. Hey, talk about not sustainable. You said Hurts isn't sustainable, throwing it only 17 times. Agreed. And I think they're going to be forced to throw a little bit more because Denver will be better against the run than either of their last two opponents. Who else is going to be able to step in and make a play for the Eagles? If they double Smith, which they may, if they bracket Goddard, which I would do if I were Denver, and someone else is getting one-on-one coverage and a chance to make a play, if he can read it right, get open, and the quarterback can deliver the football, who's that going to be on the Eagles?
Well, I mean, like the best option I feel about if we're not throwing to Dallas Goedert or we're not throwing to Devontae Smith, which I think they should anyway. I don't care who's covering them. I don't care if he's doubled. Devontae Smith.
Or feed the ball down there and throw.
Yeah. They should. I mean, Devontae Smith still isn't getting enough targets. Like 6 in a game is not enough. I know, it kind of fit the game because they weren't throwing as much, but like he should be getting like at least 10 a game because he can handle that and he's really good. And obviously Dallas Goedert should be getting a bunch too. But if we're taking them out of the equation, I mean, Quez Watkins isn't going to be a volume receiver for you, but he's obviously a big play guy. We know that. And I don't think we've kind of been able to see enough big plays from him. And maybe teams have been kind of keying in on him and trying to take that away. But still, I mean, there has to be kind of spots there and you have to hit him. I believe there was a shot play, if I'm not mistaken, to Quez last week when the Eagles were backed up against their own goal line and the throw was out of bounds by Jalen Hurts. So to kind of miss those, that's a big deal. So I think, it's Quez. Maybe you get the running backs involved in the passing game, but they're not really playing Kenny Gainwell at all right now, which I don't know what that's all about. So there aren't any great answers, really.
BLG, we like to get on how he rose the first drinks. It's clear he makes a lot of mistakes, but I got to defend him a little bit here on top 10 picks. Lane Johnson, he hit. Carson Wentz, he hit before the injury. And, DeVonta Smith's going to be a stud in this league. Now that the Eagles look like they're at least going to have 2 top 10 picks, I mean, do you feel confident that he can make these right picks?
I guess, I get that that's the concern with everyone. I can't say I have full confidence in him just because it's some of the bad processes that have gone into it before. I know you picked up the good examples there of the top 10, and obviously there's a better chance to hit on those because you're picking from very, very good talents as opposed to things get a little bit murkier in the 20s. I guess like the way I think about it isn't just about that, because I don't think it's going to be as simple as the Eagles sitting at all those picks and making them, because if they do that, and I know a lot of people want to see that happen, and specifically probably want them to add a couple, defensive studs, and I bet a lot of people would say, hey, let's get like a linebacker, a safety, and a defensive end, 3 picks, 3 defenders. But okay, but where are you getting the quarterback from? Like, I think I don't think once you use those picks, you don't have the assets anymore to go out and trade for a veteran quarterback. And obviously, free agency happens before the draft. So we'll kind of have an idea of what they are going to be able to do in the draft based on, what they do when the trade window opens in March and everything. So we'll figure that out. There's an order of operations there. But that's the kind of way I think about it. I just don't necessarily assume they're going to have all those picks to spend. I think they're going to be pretty aggressive in trying to find a veteran quarterback. Whether that they can execute that trade, I don't know, because I think Russell Wilson, let's just say, for example, I don't know why he would want to come to Philly, and he has a no trade clause, so that's relevant. But yeah, to kind of answer your question about Howie and the picks, I'm not saying he can't get him right. I can't say I have supreme confidence without a doubt that he is.
All right, so I'm really going to hold your feet to the fire here, BLG. Assuming that Russell Wilson's not coming and Deshaun Watson's not coming, I can pretty much assure you that Aaron Rodgers, I think they have a better chance to get Watson and or Wilson than they do of getting Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a free agent quarterback that I can see that is going to hit the free agent market. There isn't a expiring contract or a guy I go, yeah, the team's going to cut ties. They're going to move away from it. I just don't see a veteran guy being the guy here. If they're going to draft a quarterback, all right, more power to them. I don't know that it's a good quarterback draft. I don't know that I would use their highest pick, which will probably be the Dolphin one, on a quarterback. There'll probably be a quarterback off the board. Howie Roseman can't actually combine picks to move up to take a quarterback in this. I don't think it can happen. Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback of the Eagles again next year. Whether you like it, I like it, or anybody else like, there's a really good chance. I think it's better than 50% as we sit here right now that Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of the Eagles, no matter what he does in these next 8 games.
I get what you're saying from a standpoint of like he might just be the last man standing there, but like I just don't think that's how the Eagles operate, Jody. Like I don't think they just say good enough is good enough at the quarterback position, and we're just going to roll with this guy, even though we don't really feel great about it.
They traded Carson Wentz. Jalen Hurts was drafted to be a backup. Guess what? He's going to start all the games this year. They're going to make all these moves to try and get a new quarterback. They're going to be thwarted. They're not going to get him. Guess what? Jalen Hurts is going to be the quarterback again next year.
That's a 1-year thing, though. I don't think like they're going into this I just
1 year, 2 years. Are we splitting the hairs here, BLG?
It's possible. It's possible from a standpoint of anything, or there's a chance. I think it's a lower than 50. I would say maybe, I don't know, a 20% chance, but like I don't know. I think you can't really discount how this offense has shifted, and I think there's a big reason that happened. I think early in the season, it's just a theory of mine, but I think early in the season they wanted to see what Jalen Hurts can do with his arm, and everyone's like, "Whoa, why did it take so long for them to start running the ball?" Well, it's because they wanted to evaluate the starting quarterback and see if he could actually throw, and it turns out he really can't too well, or at least can't carry an offense that way. And now they're again running the ball at this very heavy rate. And I think that's because it's Nick Sirianni trying to do whatever he can to win now, because that's his job as a head coach. But I don't think it's really, setting the team up for long-term success. And I just feel like, we know how this organization works and how the owner and GM are really involved. And I can't help but wonder, did the head coach get the green light for, them to go to a run-heavy offense all of a sudden? Something that Jeffrey Lurie has complained about to Doug Pearson, even when it's worked in the past, reportedly. So that's where my mind is at.
Well, now that we're bringing up the 2022 draft class here, the name I keep hearing that the best quarterback is, everybody wants to talk about Matt Corral and Malik Willis. Well, the name I keep hearing is Kenny Pickett. It's Kenny Pickett. You got to watch Kenny Pickett. I've watched a couple games now. Guy's got an arm. He's got some mobility. I think there's franchise quarterback potential in him, but I don't know if you would want to waste say they get the 2 or 3 pick here. I don't know if that's worth it. Is that something the Eagles are really going to have to evaluate this offseason?
I just don't get, like, the biggest sense that, I think they really prefer a veteran. I think that's the case. I think that's what they want to do. I don't know then what that becomes. Like Jody's saying, if they can't get that person, which is, there's a realistic chance that they can't. I don't know if that goes to the draft. With Kenny Pickett, the thing I don't love about his profile, I think he's pretty older, right? Like he's like 24 or so. That's not great to me. That's not like automatically disqualifying, so you can't succeed in the NFL. But I don't love that because he might just kind of be already what he is at this point, and I don't know, what the ceiling is like for him to improve and everything. So there's no easy answer here, and that's the frustrating, challenging part about all of this, and also why I think there is a lot of Jalen Hurts support because it kind of manifests that of, well, if he's not the guy, then we don't have an answer. But I think that's you can't just talk yourself into him because of that. Like you have to evaluate him in a vacuum, and is he good enough or not? And I don't think he has been to this point. And I don't know that Kenny Pickett is coming in here being the answer either, or Matt Corral or Malik Willis. I am intrigued by Matt Corral the most, but I'm not saying like he's a surefire answer by any means. And that's kind of why the Eagles are in a tough spot.
Let me, if we're going to go with a veteran quarterback, which I follow your line of thinking, BLG, it makes 100% sense. But if we're going to believe that the Eagles can get their hands on a veteran quarterback, let's set the bar high. Let's get that Mahomes guy. Andy Reid, you owe us. You never would have won a Super Bowl if you didn't get your job first here.
Maybe give us
that
Chad Henne.
Mahomes guy.
You give us Chad Henne probably, but not Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, there's a veteran for you. No, we don't need Chad Henne. BLG. I think Nick Sirianni's doing a decent job. I had a caller last night on WIP, or maybe it was Monday night. He must go tomorrow. It's got to be fired. I said, not happening. Stop, please. He's going to get the rest of this season. He's going to get another season on top of that. I don't think, unless the Eagles lose out, I don't think there's any way Nick Sirianni's going to be fired. Jonathan Gannon, his seat is still a little warm for me, but Sirianni's going to be here. And anyone who debates that, I think, is just being a hater, so shame on them. I think he's got a pretty good control of the roster. I think he's got of the locker room. Roster is Howie. But I think they're still playing hard for him, and I still think the players are giving damn close to maximum effort. But if they had a moment alone, Sirianni said, I need you guys to talk. If he slammed the locker room door shut and they had a players-only meeting, give me one. If you need to go two, that's fine. But give me the guy who would step up and run a players-only meeting if this team decided it needed one right now.
That's a really good question. I think it kind of speaks to the lack of, because like, let's say if Malcolm Jenkins was here, you wouldn't even be asking me this question, Jody. We'd all know it'd be Malcolm Jenkins.
And I didn't go, it's got to be a player. I should add this codicil to it. I think it would be Brandon Graham. If Graham was capable to be going out and playing, I think he is the vocal leader of this team. Well, it's nice to be able to do it when you're in the mix. He's not. He's done for the year, and hopefully he's going to come back next year. But if Brandon Graham isn't the guy, who is the guy who would stand up and say, here's what we need to do as a group?
I think it'd be Rodney McLeod, just from the standpoint of, this is the guy who breaks down the huddle, before the games and everything. He's obviously been here for a little bit now, and he is a team captain, has been for 2 years in a row, and was really looked to replace Malcolm Jenkins when Jenkins was not kept. But it's just kind of a weird thing because I think Rodney is a well-spoken guy, and I think players respect him. But like Rodney McLeod isn't having some amazing season or anything, and I think a lot of times like your leaders need to be your best players, like the people who are producing results on the field and then can back up that talk and everything. So I don't think they have an amazing leadership here. They obviously have some good guys. Jason Kelce is in there as well. That's an obvious name to point to, but. And part of the problem is with those names that I'm saying, like those guys aren't going to be here for years to come. Like these are the guys in the twilight of their careers. Like who's the leader moving forward? Like what is the next era of Eagles football, which is what the team is transitioning to? Like who's going to step up? Which of these young guys is going to be a leader moving forward? And I don't know. Like there's really no good answer for that. Devontae Smith is, I think, kind of a quiet guy. Maybe it's him to some extent. I don't know about that. I mean, if Jalen Hurts is here, I don't know. Like there isn't really a surefire answer when it comes to like projecting the leaders of the future on this team.
Speaking of the next era of Eagles football, I did want to ask you about this, BLG. I mean, you've been a pretty good critic of Miles Sanders in the past, and rightfully so. But I want to know, like, is Nick Sirianni going to commit to this run game when he eventually does return, or do the Eagles have to find out what they have in him just as much as they have to find out what they have in this quarterback?
It's going to be really interesting to see what his playing time looks like when he gets back because, Jordan Howard's been effective. Boston Scott has been effective. Kenny Gainwell has kind of been in the doghouse, but he's still here. Like, I don't know that you're just, not using him at all. So I don't know. It's really weird to me because, again, you're having success right now. And I think some of that speaks to Jordan Howard and Boston Scott taking the yards that are there as opposed to trying to dance around. Now, the benefit of obviously kind of being able to dance around like Miles Sanders can is he has that home run ability, as we saw, in 2020 for sure, and being able to hit on those bigger plays. So there's some risk reward there. But I think this offense, the way it's designed right now, maybe kind of can't afford that as much as they kind of just need people who kind of get consistent yards and keep the chains moving and keep the offense on schedule so they're not getting into third and longs and then asking the quarterback, to complete tougher passes regularly. So he's going to have a role. Obviously, it's Miles Sanders. He's the top running back on the team. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I have to imagine it's not going to be the same one in terms of the looks he was getting or percentage-wise because he wasn't getting a ton, obviously, because the Eagles weren't running the ball when he was healthier. But I can't imagine, he's just getting 100% of the workload with the way Jordan Howard and Boston Scott are playing.
All right, BLG, you have every right to change your mind between now and Sunday's kickoff, and people should be on Bleeding Green Nation all week long. Beat either the written word, podcast, whatever else to get Brandon's up-to-date belief on the upcoming game. And we're going to ask you days in advance, but give you the right to change your mind between now and then. You don't even have to make a pick. Just tell me which way you're leaning between the Broncos and the Eagles going into the game on Sunday in Denver.
I'm leaning towards the Eagles, and it's not necessarily about a supreme confidence in them as it is. I don't think the Broncos are as good as one might think they are after beating the Cowboys. I think that was kind of, the very best game they can put together. I don't think that's their normal game. Also, the Cowboys have been owned by the Broncos, haven't beat them since 1995. So there's something about it where the Broncos just own that team. And the Cowboys obviously had their very worst game. So I think that was just kind of, I don't think that's indicative necessarily of what's to come, as it was just a bad week for the Cowboys and a really good week for the Broncos. I think Teddy Bridgewater is not anything super special at quarterback. And I think the Eagles defense has been able to, as we've mentioned, kind of handle those quarterbacks that aren't the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. That's not to say I know they're going to shut them down, but I think they can at least, hang with Teddy Bridgewater. And then I think the offense will be really interesting to see from the standpoint of this Broncos run defense is the toughest one they've faced since they've started really committing to the run more, certainly better than the Lions and the Chargers run defense. So if the Broncos are able to stop the run, can Jalen Hurts pick up the slack? That's, a big question that I will be looking to see answered this weekend. But overall, again, I just don't think the Broncos are that great of a team. I know their record, 5-4 makes them look. I think it makes them look a little bit better than they really are. So I'm leaning with the Eagles here.
All right. Is there any truth to the rumor that if the Eagles do win this week, you will put that leopard skin lampshade over your right shoulder, over your head, and do some serious dancing at Club BLG?
Can't confirm or deny.
Well, we can confirm absolutely every time you come on the show. You bring opinion and insight. Thanks, Brandon. We will talk to you again soon. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
Take it easy, guys.
Brandon Lee Gowton, Bleeding Green Nation. Always good when he hops aboard Birds 365. All right, Kern McDonald coming back. No lampshades for either of us. Sunday, the final segment of it's just not happening. Neither one. We have to keep the shiny look we got going. Kern McDonald coming back here on Birds 365 to put.